So here, this is Savitri speaking. This is part of her long reply to death. We are following Savitri in her journey through the beyond. She is following the soul of her husband, Shraddhavan, who has been taken away by this figure of death. This figure who represents all negativity and opposition to progress, all opposition to the higher ideals that uplift human beings. He has been pouring scorn on her dream of ideal love, of access to divinity, to truth. But she has not been discouraged because of the experiences that she had through her sadhana, which we read about in Book 7. She knows from experience that all this negativity that he is throwing on her is not true. And in this way, Sri Aurobindo is able to express the truths, the saving truths that he sees through this conversation. And now we've come to this long reply of Savitri to death. So I'm going to read from line 611 on page 658. Ingenious notes plugged into a motived score, these million discords dot the harmonious theme of the evolution's huge orchestral dance. A truth supreme has forced the world to be. It has wrapped itself in matter as in a shroud of death, a shroud of ignorance. It compelled the suns to burn through silent space, flame signs of its uncomprehended thought in a wide, brooding ether's formless muse. It made of knowledge a veiled and struggling light, of being a substance nescient, dense and dumb, of bliss, the beauty of an insentient world. In finite things, the conscious infinite dwells. Involved, it sleeps in matter's helpless trance. It rules the world from its sleeping, senseless void. Dreaming, it throws out mind and heart and soul to labor crippled, bound on the hard earth. A broken whole, it works through scattered points. Its gleaming shards are wisdom's diamond thoughts, its shadowy reflex, our ignorance. It starts from the mute mass in countless jets. It fashions a being out of brain and nerve, a sentient creature from its pleasures and pangs. A pack of feelings obscure, a dot of sense, survives a while, answering the shocks of life, then crushed, or its force spent, leaves the dead form, leaves the huge universe in which it lived, an insignificant, unconsidered guest. But the soul grows concealed within its house. It gives to the body its strength and magnificence. It follows aims in an ignorant, aimless world. It lends significance to earth's meaningless life. A demigod animal came thinking man. He wallows in mud, yet heavenward soars in thought. He plays and ponders, laughs and weeps and dreams, satisfies his little longings like the beast. He pores upon life's book with student eyes. Out of this tangle of intellect and sense, out of the narrow scope of finite thought, at last he wakes into spiritual mind. A high liberty begins, and luminous room. He glimpses eternity, touches the infinite. He meets the gods in great and sudden hours. He feels the universe as his larger self, makes space and time his opportunity to join the heights and depths of being in light. In the heart's cave speaks secretly with God. Rosa, will you read? Yes?
Yeah. Ingenious, not
Plugged.
into a market score. This million Scots took the harmonious theme of the evolutions, huge of scarce
Orchestral.
Dance.
Yes. So what we had been reading, the last sentence that we read last time, spoke about all the things that go wrong in life. No? It said there's a purpose in each stumble and fall. Every time when we find something going wrong, it has a meaning, it has a significance. No? And each of these falls is preparing some forward step, some deep result. So then he says, this means that life is like a wonderful piece of music, a score. A score is the book in which a piece of music is written. It's not written in normal handwriting. There are special lines and the notes. Yes. So sometimes a musician, in order to emphasize or move forward or enrich the beauty of his music, he will put some discords in, some notes that if we just hear them by themselves, they don't sound good to the ear. A discord. So he is saying that these things which seem to go wrong in our lives, the stumblings, the fallings, the failures, the defeats, these are very clever notes which have been put into this written form of the music of the universe. This score is made up of motifs of different themes. He says there are millions of these discords, but they are just dotting here and there the harmonious theme of this huge dance. He says orchestral dance. If there's an orchestra, it means there's a lot of musicians all playing different instruments. So that's how it is. Mother has said that all of us are musicians in this great universal symphony, and each of us has to make sure that we play our bit of music correctly. So we can't always do that, so these discords come, but they are still all part of this huge orchestral dance. It's a dance. It's a very, very beautiful dance.
A dot, discords dot, that means it...
Here and there we have discords. It's not discords all the time, but they come now and again. This is what Savitri is saying in answer to all the discouraging words of death. She's saying, yes, there are stumblings and there are falls, there are discords, but they're all part of a wonderful, harmonious theme, universal theme.
Tell me the truth.
He said, yes. He asked her to show him the truth. So that's what she's doing now. Yes, thank you. Bhavana.
A truth supreme has formed the world to be. It has wrapped itself in matter as in a shroud of death, a shroud of ignorance.
Yes. So this is a truth with a capital T, that the world is not an accident. A truth, a supreme truth, has forced this world to exist. That's why we're all here. But that truth has hidden itself. It has wrapped itself up in matter, as if in a shroud. A shroud is the cloth that we use to wrap a dead body. So it seems as if that truth is not there. We can't see it. We can see all these processes of death that go on in the universe. We can be aware of all this ignorance, all the things that we don't know. But hidden within all these different kinds of coverings, this truth supreme is still there. That is what has forced the world to be, and it is inhabiting the world. It is within every aspect and form and movement of the world. Mihong.
It compared the suns to burn through silent space, plain silence of its uncomprehended thoughts, in a wide brooding, ether's formless muse. It made of knowledge, of vague and struggling light, of being, a substance nascent, dense and dumb, of a bliss, the beauty of an insentient world.
Yes. So what is the it here? The truth, right? Yes. That truth supreme has compelled the suns to burn through silent space. The physicists tell us that it took a long time from the beginning of what they call the Big Bang, what they trace as the beginning of our universe, for the stars to emerge. It didn't happen immediately. There was quite a long process. But here Sri Aurobindo is saying that that process was being driven by a truth which is coded in to everything that happens into this universe. That truth has compelled all these suns, all these countless suns that we see as distant stars. And it's in those stars that all the other elements of what we know now as matter have been formed. So even our little earth and all of us, everything on this earth, all our substance has been created in the heart of those suns. He says those suns, or Savitri says, those suns are flame signs of the thought of that supreme truth, the conception. They are indications of that conception, which hasn't been understood, uncomprehended. It means that it hasn't been understood. These are flame signs which are existing there in a wide, brooding ether's formless muse. Ether is the subtlest form of matter. Our present-day physicists don't believe in the existence of ether. They think that they have done experiments and proved that there's no such thing as ether. But long after they had done those experiments and come to that conclusion, Sri Aurobindo went on referring to this ether, this subtlest form of substance. So what seems to us vast, empty space, a vacuum, actually is pervaded by this ether, this finest form of substance. And that is a conscious substance. It's wide, it's musing, it's as if in a kind of state of meditation. It's formless, and it is brooding. This is one of Sri Aurobindo's favorite words. We come across it very often in the poem. If something is brooding, it is like a mother hen sitting on her eggs. Something is going to hatch. Something is going to come out. If there's a brood, and she's in a kind of muse, no? The mother bird sits on the eggs and she won't eat, and it's as if she's asleep. But she's just concentrating on her eggs, and something has to come out. So we can say that a person is brooding. Sometimes if somebody seems to be very abstracted and you can't get them to talk to you properly, and they have something on their mind, but you can be sure that something's going to come out. It may not be very pleasant when it comes out, but something is going to come out. Yes, something's going on here, and it may be positive or negative, what emerges, what gets expressed. So those suns, they are flame signs, indications of that brooding of the truth in the spaceless, in the formless ether. So that truth has compelled those suns to come into existence. And on another level, it has made of knowledge, the capacity of knowing, in us manifested creatures. The power of knowledge is a light, of course, but it's a light which is veiled, which is struggling, which is not able to express itself fully and clearly. That truth has also made out of being, out of the pure, essential existence, it has made or expressed that essential existence as a substance, matter, substance that seems to have no knowledge, which seems to be dense, dumb, unable to express itself. This is the correspondence between pure existence and Sat and matter. Sri Aurobindo makes this correspondence that the life force corresponds to consciousness force, and the soul force corresponds to bliss, to Ananda. So this is the Satchit Ananda expressed in the manifestation. So of that hidden bliss, which is the characteristic of that supreme truth, has become all the beauty that we see in nature, in an insentient world, a world without feelings.
Then how this sentence begins with of being?
In the previous line we have it made of knowledge. Yes. So now we have to understand this it made is repeated in the next two lines. It made of being a substance. It made of bliss, the beauty of an insentient world. This is a very useful thing that poets can do. You know? We say it is understood. That repetition, they don't have to repeat the actual words. It is understood. We, the clever readers, are supposed to understand that is there.
Can we have an explanation of this first line, 620?
Yes.
Made knowledge a wheeled and struggling light.
Yes. So knowledge is actually pure consciousness, no? Consciousness of how things really are. When we have this knowledge with a capital K, it's not our human knowledge, it's the divine knowledge of everything as it is. But that gets expressed in this shrouded truth, which is the manifestation, at least in its early stages. There, that power of knowledge has become, it is a light, but it's a light which is covered up and which has to struggle. We don't just look and know. Eventually it will be like that, but for the time being we have to work things out. It's a struggling light, our power of knowledge. So the origin of all the beauty that we see in nature around us, that is the divine bliss expressing itself in forms. Martin.
In finite things, the conscious infinite dwells. Involved it sleeps in matter's helpless trance. It rules the world from its sleeping, senseless void. Dreaming, it throws out mind and heart and soul to labor crippled, bound on the hard earth. A broken whole, it worked through scattered points. Its gleaming shards are wisdom's diamond thoughts. Its shadowy reflects our ignorance.
Yes. So we and all these things that we see here are finite things, limited things. But in all these finite things, including ourselves, the conscious infinite is living. That supreme truth is living within all this. It is in matter, it is involved. It's kind of folded in. It's asleep. Matter is as if in a kind of trance. It's helpless, it can't move, it's inert, it's not conscious. But still, that is the conscious infinite involved there. No? And that conscious infinite is ruling the world. Although it's in this state of death kept calling it this void, this emptiness. So the conscious infinite is ruling the world from its sleeping void, which has no senses. This word senseless can have two meanings, and perhaps in this line it has them both. It has no senses, no capacity to see, hear, taste, touch. But it can also mean without meaning. It seems to be meaningless, this emptiness. But within even the emptiness, the apparently empty space, the conscious infinite is ruling the world from there. It's involved. He says it's also dreaming. It may seem to be in a state of deep indrawn sleep, but it's dreaming, and its dreams get expressed in our world in the forms of mind, of heart, of feelings, emotions, in the form of soul. And these powers get cast out. It throws them out, it projects them out, and they're here in this world of matter. And here in this world of matter, they are crippled. They can't express themselves fully. They can't move properly. No? They are bound, tied up tight within the matter. No? And so they have to struggle to express themselves here on this hard earth. That conscious infinite is, of course, vast and limitless, and it can't be divided. But here in the manifestation, it expresses itself as a whole which has been broken up into many parts, a broken whole. And so it is expressing itself through all these many parts, through me and you and all its other many parts. Wherever it can express itself, it does, through these scattered points here and there. This is especially interesting when we think about consciousness, that there's one conscious infinite, and it expresses itself through all of us, through all the scattered points, and not only human beings, but in plants and animals. That conscious whole expresses itself in so many different ways. And then he uses the word shards. A shard is a broken piece of something, a broken piece of glass or pottery. So he's spoken about that conscious infinite being broken. It's broken into many shards. Its gleaming shards, are the diamond points of wisdom. So that's this conscious infinite expressing itself here and there in a broken way. And that conscious infinite also has a shadowy reflection in our ignorance. Leila.
It starts from the nude mass in countless jets. It fashions a being out of rain and nerve, a sentient creature from its pleasure and pangs.
So this is the conscious infinite, no? It's kind of pressing its way out like jets of water, if water's under pressure. So this consciousness, wherever there's a little opening, it will emerge, it will shoot out, starting out, bursting out of this mute mass, this silent mass of matter. The consciousness breaks out in countless tiny jets here and there, or big and small jets. And from behind, it's shaping, fashioning, shaping a being, an individual being, out of brain and nerve. It needs that brain and nerve to be able to express itself in individual beings. But these are just material, physical things. The consciousness uses them, shapes them in order to use them in the individual. And the result is a sentient creature, a creature that has the power of sensing the universe around it. The fact that we can touch and sense and gain knowledge about the world outside our bodies, it's born out of the pleasures and pains of the conscious infinite.
A pack of feelings, obscure, a dot of sense, survives a while answering the shocks of life, then crushed or its force spent, leaves the dead form, leaves the huge universe in which it lived, an insignificant, unconsidered guest.
Yes, thank you. One sentence. So that's our individual consciousness. It's like a pack, a group or a mass of obscure feelings, feelings that are only obscurely felt, not clearly defined. It's just a dot of sense experience. So this individual form survives for some time. It responds to, it answers to all the shocks that the world around us give us. No? They come, the touches. But after some time, it gets overwhelmed by the pressure of the vast universe, or its little bit of strength is used up, so it leaves the form. And then we say the form is dead. And even that little bit individual consciousness even leaves the universe, this huge material universe in which it had lived. It had lived here in the universe as a guest. Nobody noticed it. An insignificant, unconsidered guest. Nobody gave it much importance. So it may leave like that, but that's not the end of the story. Marie, please.
But the soul grows, concealed within its house. It gives to the body its strength and magnificence. It follows aims, and ignorance aimless work. It lends significance to Earth's meaningless life.
Yes. So the soul, the individual soul, living within its house, the body, it's growing. It's hidden there, we don't see it, this insignificant, unconsidered guest. But it grows through all its experience. And that is what gives to the body any strength or magnificence that it may have. No? The soul is following its own aims, its own purposes in this ignorant, aimless world that doesn't seem to know what it's doing. And it's the soul that lends meaning, significance to this meaningless life of Earth here in the material universe. So in this huge orchestral dance of evolution, there's a development. So the next step is the development of human beings. Dr. Palani, will you read?
A demigod animal came thinking man. He wallows in mud, yet heavenward soars in thought. He prays and ponders, laughs and weeps and dreams, satisfies his little longings like a beast. He pours upon life's book with student eyes.
Yes, in the course of evolution has developed this creature, thinking man the mental being. And here he's described as a demigod animal, a half-god, an animal. We are animals in our beings, in our inner beings. It's as if we are half divine. What does man do? He wallows in mud. Wallowing is what pigs do, or hippopotamuses. If they find a nice muddy place, they wallow in it. They enjoy that nice, cool, sticky, slippy mud. So we human beings, we also wallow in the mud sometimes. But sometimes we also fly like a powerful bird. We soar in our thoughts up towards heaven, to the higher levels of consciousness. We do both. We wallow in the mud and we soar up to the heights. Man plays, and sometimes he ponders, he thinks deeply. We laugh, we weep, we dream. We behave like animals sometimes, just like animals do. We satisfy our little longings. But sometimes we use our thinking capacity to look around us at life and study it as if it were a book. To pore means to look very closely. If I take my glasses off, I will have to pore. I will have to screw up my eyes and look closely at the words that are on the page. No? So to look with intense concentration. So human beings do that. They study the book of life with student eyes in order to learn something. No? Would you read?
Out of this tangle of intellect and sense, out of the narrow scope of final thought, at last he wakes into spiritual height, and high liberty begins, and within us he glimpses eternity, touches the infinite, He needs the gods and great certain powers. He feels the universe as his larger self, makes space and time his opportunity to join the highest in the depths of the light. In the heart's cave speaks secretly with God.
Yes, thank you. So this is the higher life when the human being develops. At last, he wakes up out of this tangle. A tangle, that's what happens to your hair when the wind gets in it and then you can't get the comb through. Everything is tangled up. Our human consciousness is a kind of tangle of sense impressions and what our mind makes of it, what the intellect makes of it. Out of this narrow scope, this very restricted range of the thought, finite, limited thought, at last the human being can wake up into spiritual mind. So then that's the beginning of a much wider freedom. Room, he's no longer confined within this narrow scope. There's a wider range of possibilities, full of light, luminous room. The spiritual man gets a glimpse of eternity. He may feel touches of the infinite. He may have wonderful experiences meeting the gods, the cosmic powers in great and sudden hours. Suddenly something may come and there's a feeling of greatness and power, wonderful spiritual experiences. Eventually he may widen to feel the whole universe as his own self. This is one of the characteristic spiritual experiences, to feel one with the whole universe. So then he realizes that space and time, our existence here in this universe, which we experience in space and in time, that this is our opportunity to join the highest levels of consciousness and the deepest levels of consciousness. The highest levels of existence and the lowest levels of existence. That these can be joined in light, in consciousness. And he may find that he can actually speak intimately with God in the heart's cave, in that deep center, behind the emotional heart, in the very deep center of our individual being. So Savitri has given us a picture in brief, in 50 lines or so, 60 lines. It's given us an expression of Sri Aurobindo's view of the universe and why we are here and what we ourselves are. This is not the end of Savitri's answer to death. It will go on for several pages more. That means several weeks more for us. Maybe 3 or 4 weeks.
Just read in the book that which you gave, the one, Invitations.
Yes.
It actually says that Lord Brahma has 2 wives.
Yes.
Is that true?
Well, that's a symbolic way, a mythological way of expressing a truth. So, Brahma is the name that has been given to the creative power, or the creator. We can say the one who conceives the universe. Here it describes it as the supreme truth. A supreme truth has compelled the world to be. So we can give the name Brahma to that. And when we say that he has two wives, it means that he has two dynamic ways of expressing himself, two Shaktis, two powers, dynamic forces. So one of these is called Gayatri and one is called Savitri. So both of these names have complex meanings, but we can say that both of them represent ways of operating of the creative power. Does that help? Yeah. So let's stop there for today. Shall we read these lines together? Starting from line 611.
Ingenious notes plugged into a motived score, these million discords dot the harmonious theme of the evolution's huge orchestral dance. A truth supreme has forced the world to be. It has wrapped itself in matter as in a shroud of death, a shroud of ignorance. It compelled the suns to burn through silent space, flame signs of its uncomprehended thought, in a wide brooding ether's formless muse. It made of knowledge a veiled and struggling light, of being a substance nescient, dense and dumb, of bliss the beauty of an insentient world. In finite things the conscious infinite dwells. Involved it sleeps in matter's helpless trance. It rules the world from its sleeping senseless void. Dreaming, it throws out mind and heart and soul to labour crippled, bound on the hard earth. A broken whole, it works through scattered points. Its gleaming shards are wisdom's diamond thoughts, its shadowy reflex our ignorance. It starts from the mute mass in countless jets. It fashions a being out of brain and nerve, a sentient creature from its pleasures and pangs. A pack of feelings obscure, a dot of sense, survives a while, answering the shocks of life, then crushed, or its force spent, leaves the dead form, leaves the huge universe in which it lived, an insignificant, unconsidered guest. but the soul grows, concealed within its house. It gives to the body its strength and magnificence. It follows aims in an ignorant, aimless world. It lends significance to earth's meaningless life. A demigod animal came thinking man. He wallows in mud, yet heavenward soars in thought. He plays and ponders, laughs and weeps and dreams, satisfies his little longings like the beast. He pores upon life's book with student eyes. Out of this tangle of intellect and sense, out of the narrow scope of finite thought, at last he wakes into spiritual mind. A high liberty begins, and luminous room. He glimpses eternity, touches the infinite. He meets the gods in great and sudden hours. He feels the universe as his larger self, makes space and time his opportunity to join the heights and depths of being in light. In the heart's cave, speak secretly with God.